Hello. So I got a note from Nikki B who sent me a petition. And let's have a look at that. What is it? The petition is to remove BMI from DSM-5 diagnostic criteria. So what it says is currently people struggling with eating disorders not receiving the adequate and vital care they require. Agree with that. This is largely because the diagnostic criteria for eating disorders is archaic, needs to be updated. Agree with that. Currently, access to care for anorexia is dependent on BMI, which is depressing. BMI is an outdated scale that was never intended for individual health assessment. Yep. Yet, a person's access to life-saving treatment can be prohibited by this. The intention of this petition is for the American Psychiatric Association to remove BMI from their diagnostic criteria for anorexia. And then it goes on to talk a little bit about, actually, this is important to read, that less than 6% of individuals suffering from an eating disorder are underweight. Did you hear that? Yeah, meaning 94% of patients who desperately need life-saving treatment are discriminated against. Eating disorders have the highest mortality rate of mental health conditions. Things need to change. So, there's not much I disagree with in that. Absolutely. Well, we need to get more than 200. They've got 127 signatures and they want to get 200 signatures, but I think we should be able to get a lot more than 200 signatures for that one, shouldn't you? I would love that, because one of the things I get emails quite a lot from people that are saying like, oh, well, I restrict food and I only eat carrots and I run 20 miles a day, but also I'm not that underweight, so I probably don't have an eating disorder. I'm like, oh, yeah, you do. All right, that was an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. I often say this, that I was somebody who did become statistically underweight when I had an eating disorder. However, I have worked with people who have been restricting far greater than I ever did, or exercising more than I ever did, and they are not as underweight as I got. Therefore, they're completely overlooked, despite the fact that they are severely restricting food and over-exercising or using other compensatory behaviours, which is kind of crazy. Now, we have to take body diversity into that, because that just proves that we're not all the same, doesn't it? Somebody could be restricting more than I ever did and still not lose as much weight as I did. It just depends on your genetics. It depends on how your individual body is geared up to deal with energy deficit and dietary restriction, perceived famine, and all that stuff. And so it's all relative and none of it matters. And the other thing that we can't do is we can't compare a person's weight to another one and say, well, that person is more or less severe of an eating disorder because they are more or less underweight. Like, that just doesn't make any goddamn sense. What we need to look at is mental state all the time. Mental state, behaviors, thought patterns, all of those things that are actually so much more important when it comes to looking at how severe an eating disorder is. The other thing that I think is important is that we also shouldn't be looking at, why does an eating disorder have to get so severe for somebody to receive treatment? And when I say severe, I mean that their actions of restriction, compulsive exercise, and body weight suppression are so very, exaggerated. Really, if we could actually look at things like dietary restriction and compulsive movement and look at it on the level that most doctors and treatment providers don't even consider a problem. Actually, I would look at it a lot of the time and be like, yeah, it's a problem. Because the reason that I know it's a problem is because I know that that person feels anxious about it. So for somebody who has no fear of weight gain, no body weight suppression problems, all of that stuff, going for a run 5 days a week might be totally fine for them to do. But if a person has a lot of anxiety around not going for that run, and they have body weight suppression ideas, and they have fear of weight gain, then that exact same length of run, frequency of run, could be coming from a really different place. And rather than being something that has a positive impact on their health, could just be having a very, very negative impact on their health. And the reason for that is because they're doing it out of fear. They're doing it out of fear of weight gain, fear causes anxiety. Anxiety and stress ruin our lives. And so we do have to look at the individual, and it shouldn't just be, let's gauge whether this person is eating disordered or not based on even just their activities or the severity of their activities. It should be based on what the impact of those activities has on their mental state. All right, sermon over. Sign the petition. Okay, thanks, bye.